We settled Mars over a century ago. Making this dusty rock our home wasn't easy, but the promise that led us across the void was freedom. Something my family's bled for many times.
Hello there, Sir from 17 once again, bringing you the next section in my Red Faction Armageddon Insane Difficulty video walkthrough. And now that we've finally got to Bastion, our work is not ended there, as we now have to go and run some various errands, because we're just, we're the kind of guy who just goes into town, sweeps through, and just has to do something good. So kind of the antithesis of Clint Eastwood in all the westerns when he went into the towns, had a shave, and ended up shooting everybody that lived there. But this one involves finding power cells, and never fear, it's not too difficult. There are a couple of bits that could get quite hairy, but if you follow these videos, they will definitely get you through it. So once again, if you've got the salvage, it's a good idea to be buying the upgrades that you like to use. I'm going to be getting deep pockets so that I get a little bit more ammo, I think, in the guns. I didn't quite have a chance to read that, so do bear with me. But as you cruise over here, you're going to be introduced to the Banshees, which are a slow-firing, semi-automatic, dual-wielded set of handguns. And they're not too bad. They're actually quite interesting. They're accurate as hell, and they do damage, but when you compare it to the ability to blow everything up and all the other crazy explosives that this game has to offer, it kind of gets left behind in a priority list. But as soon as the cutscene skips, you're going to be up against a bunch of the standards, crazy Red Faction Armageddon, Creeper, Crawler, whatever they're called, kind of monsters. And the luxury of them is if they get close, if you do the melee, you will do a unique melee where you stamps on the face like you just saw. So you probably just want to do that. Or conversely, you can horde them all towards you and you can use your... What's that move now? Is it the Impulse? It's been 3 weeks, it's been a while. I think it's the Impulse, where you do the melee with your Nano Forge and it knocks them away. But that will kill them. But anyhow, this first area is very simple. All you have to do is keep following those red waypoints and collecting the power surges. We've just got the first one. As I usually do with most games, and as I did frequently throughout this one, salvage is unique to getting your upgrades. If you're not bothered about the upgrades, don't bother going out of your way to find it. It's purely how you want to play. I generally go around an area and make sure I've collected all the obvious ones I can. I don't go balls to the wall crazy to try and find the sneaky little caches everywhere, but if I stumble upon them, it's just, a little trinket in the mythos of the Catacombs of Mars, really. And then you come out through this tunnel, and at the top there's going to be another one of the hives, one of the enemy spawners, which you want to get rid of as quickly as you can. And the red guys are back, which I never got the name of them, but it doesn't matter because they're red aliens, and I think that's appropriate. So, as per usual, as you've seen me before, I am a massive advocate of the magnet gun, and it's exactly what I'm going to be doing to these guys for pretty much the majority of this game, because why waste ammo when you have unlimited and you get to watch them fly around in the joy of, Havoc physics or whatever, geomod physics. I don't know exactly what the real physics are. Obviously it's the geomod physics for the terrain and the way it crumbles, but as far as the buoyancy of the enemies when they fly through the air, I'm not too sure what facilitates that. But who cares? It's not exactly the most interesting of topics to talk about, the inner nuances of a game, if you're not interested in that kind of thing. So we'll just continue onwards. And this is the second power core that you can see there, but before you do anything, you want to make sure you've cleared the room out, because they're very agile, the enemies, as you've seen and as you've experienced, and they're always nitpicking at you, they're always firing that ridiculous bullshit that they fire, and that is an infected building, so if you destroy it, you will get a nice hefty salvage bonus. And one of the best ways to do it is with the gun I just used there, but I do apologise, I can't remember its name. 3 weeks without your Xbox, it's the biggest mind fart you could ever have. But there that is. Walk around the catacombs, picking things up, doing your Red Faction thing, and just be aware of more enemies. So there you go, there's a blue one. That's the impulse move I was mentioning before. He's not quite dead, but if you run up to him and you do the melee button, you will finish them off. And that is universal throughout all the difficulties. For any of you that would like to be like, that wouldn't happen if it were on Insane. Yes, it fucking would, and yes, it just fucking did, so shut your mouth. But up here, you'll notice I'm firing grenades prematurely, and the reason I'm doing that is because I know there's a handful of nests, and if you can kill them before you get up there, the enemies don't spawn as fervently as they probably would like. Ooh, this is a different section. I tell a lie, I was firing up there to try and get a cheeky kill on some of the enemies, my bad. But there's a creeper. Always pay attention to your map. It might be small, it might not be the most useful, but it definitely tells you how many enemies there are and exactly where they are, so it's always good to be warned before you throw yourself into a situation that just ends up with you getting your shit pushed in, and nobody wants that. It's, you know, reverse constipation. But the green guy is always going to be trouble, but as you've seen me do in previous videos, I toss him around with the magnet gun, you know, like a cheap hooker, and it works wonders. But just be aware, he does have a residual effect with his acid that does corrode you, and on Insane, it's going to do some pretty ridiculous damage. But I just like to swing him to and fro, against the ceiling, against the wall, through the huts, and he doesn't enjoy it much, but at the end of the day, this is my enjoyment, it's not his, and he's just got to take it like a man, bitch. But keep slamming him into the roof, keep doing what you're doing. And because this is pretty simple stuff, pretty red faction-y things, and I don't think there's too many opportunities for me to say, you're going to get screwed over here, this is what you have to do. I'm going to talk a little bit more about Deus Ex, because I'm midway through the game, I think, at this moment in time. I've just killed maybe the second or I think it's the second actual boss, but it's either a long game with lots of bosses or a long game with only a few bosses. But if you've been following my Enslaved guide, you'll already know some of my early opinions of the game and how some of them were pretty harsh and not in its favour. Well, I can honestly say now I am liking the game a hell of a lot more, thank God. It is a fantastic game. It's just, when you start it and you don't know how to play it and you're straight on to, you know, give me Deus Ex difficulty, you're seeing the loading screen more than you're playing. And unfortunately this game loads worse than Fallout, worse than Mass Effect's elevators, you know, worse than everything. It's horrifically bad loading times, and anybody listening to this that's got it and has played it and has installed it, please tell me if it makes a difference if you install it to the hard drive, because installing games for me is a big thing, because I only have the shitty 20 gig hard drive because I'm a fucking psycho for some other reason. So I have to delete everything off my hard drive just to install a game, because it's so full with DLC and game saves and all sorts of nonsense that it becomes a chore, and it's not something I do easily. But if it's going to make Deus Ex load faster, it's going to make the guide I intend to do significantly less stressful, and that is always a good thing, because I've mentioned I want to do it without setting off any alarms and without killing anybody on the hardest difficulty, and at the start of my experience with Deus Ex, that seemed like it was going to be impossible and I was going to drop the alarm thing because I just wasn't having any success. And it turns out the reason I was getting, you know, shit on so badly was because I was trying to play it like a first-person shooter. And aside from the fact that it looks and it has all the bells, you know, the trinkets and whistles of a first-person shooter, it really isn't. It's as much of a first-person shooter as Fallout 3 is. And if you don't understand what I'm getting at, it's Fallout 3, for all intents and purposes, does everything a first-person shooter does, but it does not have the subtle or intuitive controls and responsiveness of your top-tier shooters. The reason for this is it does so many other things that those shooters don't even have to worry about, and that's where the sacrifice is. But right now you'll notice that the spawn on the wall is always signified by the big glowing light, and you've generally got maybe a couple seconds, a little bit like the emergence holes on Gears of War 1, to set up yourself and destroy them as they spawn. If you can put a bunch of charges onto the spawning point, detonate them when they turn up, you will kill them all before they get a chance to do anything, like I'm going to demonstrate there. But they didn't die, unfortunately, because I only got one of the charges out. But luckily enough, I throw them all on, and it's hammer time. But just be aware, the aliens themselves seem to struggle significantly more to damage you than the humans do. And I think it's because they're not as aggressive. And they like to be acrobatic and dance about like idiots before they focus on trying to kill you. And the humans don't have that in their programming. The humans just have a gun that doesn't miss. So they're always tagging you, but the aliens are too busy doing their little midnight waltzes and fucking ridiculous dance moves to even care too much about ending Darius's life, so that is definitely a plus side. But back to the Deus Ex conversation now we've cleared this out. You have to power these generators on, so just use your Nano Forge. It's nice and simple. I was playing it like a first-person shooter, and the only way to really play it in that kind of mentality is probably to upgrade your character so that you don't get any recoil and all, and you take more damage with the dermal armor upgrade and all that kind of stuff, and that's probably going to make it a lot more shooter friendly. But I started playing it like Metal Gear Solid, and I must say it was exciting, it was terrifying, and it worked. And it's also given me massive faith to be able to beat this game without getting any alarms on the hardest difficulty, because I've done maybe 5 sections with the ghost bonus and the smooth operator bonus, which I think is for not being seen, for not, you know, getting alerted to your presence. And it's not the easiest thing, but I've kind of learnt how to exploit it, and I'm figuring it out gradually so that I can safely say, with some patience, some practice, and a little bit more time than it usually takes to make a guide, I think we should be onto something special, so I am looking forward to it. But there is some really interesting stuff on that game. As soon as I bought the jump where I could jump 3 meters and I was climbing all over the cities and finding little caches of items and nutrients and stuff, I was having so much fun, because this is a game that's just built to be explored, and it's really cool just finding the little niches in areas that you would overlook normally in your standard first-person shooter, but you find this and you just get that buzz, and you get a little bit of experience every time you find these little areas, and it just all works. It all feels great, and some of the side quests are awesome, and I really can't say enough positive things about some of the stuff I've done. One thing I will say is the second boss on that game is fluent bullshit. I just beat her literally 10 minutes before I started doing this commentary, and I must have been on her for an hour. And you're probably wondering, whoa, you must have died a lot, but no, it took that long to kill the bitch because I didn't have any ammo. It was awful, and I can safely say, before I make the guide, I'm definitely going to be looking into the best ways to beat her, because I would not wish that experience I just had on anybody, and for me to put it in a guide would just be sacrilegious, cause the general premise of the fight is she's a woman with a cloaking device who's very fast, she has double SMGs, and she's got the ability to charge at you and blow up. I think it's an ability called the Typhoon. And the start of the fight is easily the most difficult. I'm just going to have to impede in this moment. Right now, whenever you see the glow around the enemies, I've probably already explained this, but it means that there's going to be one of those monoliths that power the enemies up. And you always want to try and focus on killing the monolith first, because it's going to give them unnecessary buff, and I think sometimes it might even spawn enemies or something along those lines. I could be wrong, it's been a while, but I just remember the priority is always on the monolith rather than killing the enemies. And right now, the only reason I'm doing this is because I've been able to move back and I can use this turret with unlimited ammo. But if ever you see that glow, find the source, don't mess about with the enemies. It's the safest and most intelligent way to do it. And this is the last power cell of the section of the level, so I'm going to quickly carry on talking about this boss fight and probably finish it off in the next video. But she's very fast, she does this Typhoon move where she rushes at you and she blows up, and the start of the fight is easily the most hard section of it, because she has, I think, 3 Typhoons and then she has to recharge. And what happens is, if you survive the 3 almost instant kill moves, because they are, if she hits you with them, you're dead. There's nothing you can really do. You just die. It's that simple. And you see the fucking awful loading screen again. But once she's blown her load, so to speak, she has to recharge, and that's when you stand a chance of killing her, because you can chase her around the room. And what she'll do is, she'll keep running and eventually she'll stop. And if you get to her when she stops, she'll be invisible, but you can see the water around her feet, you can see the ripples, and you can see the predator shimmer and everything. And you can start shooting her. The only problem is, as soon as you start shooting her, or if she sees you, she starts shooting you. And she doesn't stop until you're dead, unless you put something in front of you. So, the technique that I was doing is, I was running around, finding where she stopped, I started to shoot her, and then I'd go into cover. She'd start shooting, she'd blow her load with the guns on the cover, and I'd pop back out and shoot her again, and she'd run away. And I kind of repeated the process, but it was not successful at all. I was saving a lot. I died a few times when I got a little bit overzealous, and it just took far too long. It was not a strategy I would ever wish upon, but there's more nuances I'm going to talk about in the next video, guys, so there's some more Red Faction Armageddon for you, and thanks for watching the guides. As always, you take care now.